truly myself. The only reason it blew up is because Jeffrey Berman refused to go quietly, and Clayton didn't get to go in there. But the interesting part about it is right after that, Clayton, where does he go? He goes to Apollo Management.
Mm.
Apollo Management is that same firm that you guys, you, Vicky, and Zev, you guys have been reporting about, who is basically the firm co-founded by Leon Black, who is, we all know, paid Epstein over $150 million, or 60 million to Virgin Islands. So there's a lot more that's going on behind the scenes right now. So the strategy, yes, Trump is going to be out there now, trying to lie to his base, rally the troops, and say that, release the files, but simultaneously, there's other things happening. I reported on it yesterday also that Trump and Thune spoke directly, and where Thune told him that he's going to stall and do whatever he can to, buy time for it to not even go for a vote in the Senate. You're starting to see already the first, and that's why you're starting to see Johnson talk about mentioning that there should be changes done. This is already strategical, done to delay and distract, and you're seeing it play out because, first of all, now it's going to go to the Senate. Then we're going to wait until the Senate finally hears it. Then the Senate's going to make some changes. Then it has to go back to the House. So this is probably the first delay process where you're going to start seeing play out. But yeah, the important part is you're seeing the players that they're putting in place. I mean, the fact that they opened up an investigation, which now allows Pam Bondi to be the fall guy,
Mm.
fall person in anything that is to be seen, but also the fact now that Clayton is going to be in charge of the investigation, so they have the players in place, and
Oh, it really
This
looks
is
like a
where we're at.
cover-up in the works here that these guys are operating under. And as you point out, the Senate is a big question here. Anything could happen over the next few days as they try to delay the vote by changing anything in the resolution. Dean, you must have seen Donald Trump a short while ago with MBS. What did he say about Epstein? I
Jesus,
mean,
what?
he was unhinged.
Yeah, today. First of all, let me just say this: today's about victims, but also today
Flags.
Yeah, it's Public Interest Day. And Donald Trump has no moral compass, and I'll get to that in just a second because he has no intention of putting out the Epstein files. He has every intention of blocking the Epstein files. What you just heard from MAGA Mike Johnson there, which was egregiously, litigated in his own mind, that made no sense. You pointed it out, very shallow, very hollow, because he plans on killing this in the Senate. That's what their plan is. Their plan is not just to kill it in the Senate, but to give themselves a couple of escape hatches. And one of them, which I found it was absolutely fucking unbelievable today. Pardon my language, for anybody here that is new, Vicky. But what I found to be really egregious today was that MAGA Mike's issue, and you heard it there, was while Donald Trump is literally entertaining with like an F-35 flyover, a man that hacked Jamal Khashoggi into 15 different pieces, who admitted to doing it. And he's giving him the royal treatment in the Oval Office. While that's going on, denying the Epstein files, telling everybody they're idiots, screaming and yelling at reporters like he did last night on Air Force One, calling that one reporter piggy. These are not the sign of a man who stands behind that true social
Well,
post where he
it
said,
was
"Time to
even
release
worse.
the files."
It was even worse than that. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Dean,
No, no,
but
no worries.
I almost threw up, and I couldn't believe when he turned around and said, when he spoke about Khashoggi, and he literally said that not everybody liked him, or I mean, like he made some sort of a comment saying like that, that this was not somebody like it was a controversial thing or something, like this was not
Yeah,
a reporter that got, that was insane.
Yeah, you
like
really
because
can't
people
help it.
didn't like Khashoggi or Khashoggi wasn't liked in his home country, it's okay to kill the guy. That's an extrajudicial
Well,
killing that we saw.
and he also said, Dean, he told the reporters not to embarrass his guest.
Yeah. He really went after that
Yeah.
reporter. It was something else. And of course, MBS is no stranger to Jeffrey Epstein. There were many connections. Were there, Vicky, between the two?
Oh, 100%. They met.
Hmm.
I reported in Chasing Ghislaine that MBS was one of the people Jeffrey had in his house. And in fact, a Russian model, whom I know, Kira Diktia, and various of her friends, were paid something like $1,000 to stand in the hallway when MBS came to visit and, quote unquote, look decorative. So yeah, they definitely they definitely knew each other, because remember, I also reported that, one of the things that made Jeffrey Epstein valuable in the rarefied world of the international plutocracy was that he was able to be a sort of back channel between the Gulf states and Israel and the US at a time when they weren't talking in the way they all are now.
And of course,
So,
Adnan Khashoggi.
Vicky,
Sorry, just
sorry, no, I just wanted to quickly ask Vicky, because what I saw today with MBS and Donald Trump, and what I've seen every time we have these votes on the Epstein files, or there's a survivors press conference, is he will bring a head of state into country. And it dawned on me today, and Vicky, maybe you know, and Lev, Zev, feel free to chime in. It seems like everybody that was in Jeffrey Epstein's orbit, not everybody, several world leaders, other people that are in Jeffrey Epstein's orbit, are literally coming to town to lighten the load, to show support for Donald Trump, and that is no coincidence, Vicky, that he's here today.
Well, the same thought had gone through my head. That there's always, Trump always has a big distraction, and it is ironic that today it's MBS. Who was it last time, Dean? I forgot.
It was the president of Poland, the hard right president of Poland.
Okay, so I don't know that he knew Jeffrey Epstein, but MBS definitely did before he was Crown Prince. But he was next in line after that to the Saudi throne. So it is fascinating that, and you can hear, and I just before we jumped on here, I was looking at the Trump MBS press conference, and I couldn't believe that yet again, what was Trump, taking out the airwaves discussing his ballroom.
Yeah. So it's such a terrible image, right? You've got him talking about this ballroom, this $300 million ballroom, when there's victims standing on the steps of Capitol Hill demanding some justice after decades and decades of just being ignored this way.
Yeah.
And he's talking about, building a giant ballroom, and asking MBS for money. But just to wrap this up a little bit around Khashoggi, Adnan Khashoggi was Jeffrey Epstein's partner. This is Jamal Khashoggi's uncle and an international, operator of some note, a weapons trader, probably worked for the CIA amongst many other people. And Epstein was his fixer, his advisor. He helped him raise finance. Some people said he was trained by Khashoggi in money laundering and other things. So you've got a man there who, is directly connected to the Saudi government as well. And there was also the Saudi passport found in Jeffrey Epstein's safe, which, you can't forget that either. So there's lots of connections to MBS, Saudi Arabia, and Jeffrey Epstein. And at the same time as he's sitting next to the president, being honored by the president, they are having this vote to discharge the petition for these Epstein files. It's kind of stunning, split screen that we're looking at.
Well, I think, it's really interesting. The one thing I did pick up when I listened to Mike Johnson giving his press conference this morning, right after the survivors gave theirs, he was quick. Trump had clearly given him talking points, and, he was quick to say, we've really got to start talking about something else.
Yeah.
But that was on the heels of Marjorie Taylor Greene also saying in the middle of the survivors press conference that this issue has ripped MAGA apart. So just to discuss what you guys were saying about how the Senate could stall it and stop it, the problem, if they do that, is that, Trump's base is not going to just shut up and put up on this one. Mm-hmm. This will not go away until somebody releases those files.
So, and I would ask you this too, Vicky. I don't know if you watched Mega Mike Johnson's press conference. There was a point in there where his face got all red, and he picked up the actual discharge petition, was going through some of the sections.
Sorry to interrupt you there, Dean.
Yeah, no problem.
Gentleman from Maryland has requested a recorded vote. Those favoring a recorded vote will rise. A sufficient number having risen, a recorded vote is ordered. Members will record their votes by electronic device. Pursuant to Clause 9 of Rule 20, this 15-minute vote on the motion to suspend the rules will be followed by 5-minute votes on ordering the previous question on House Resolution 879, adoption of House Resolution 879 if ordered, and adoption of House Resolution 878. This is a 15-minute vote.
Because they'll be voting in 15 minutes, and I'm not
Game
sure.
on.
This is just part of the discharge. I think this is just the suspending the rules, and I don't know if this is just the discharge petition itself. I don't know if you guys know. Do you know? Because there's several votes that have to take place. I'll figure that out as we keep talking here. But Deanie, I interrupted you. Please go ahead.
Yeah, no problem. Just a question, and Lev, this is for you as well. I know you watched Mega Mike this morning. Would love to hear from both of you. There was a point in the press conference today where Mega Mike held up this discharge petition, and in feigning interest in protecting survivors, by saying we don't actually have a clear definition when it comes to the evidence requested by the discharge petition. We don't have a clear definition on what child pornography and child sex abuse really is. And when I heard him say that, I almost threw up in my mouth, and I'll tell you why. Because it is really, really simple to define both of those things, and everybody knows what those things are. The other reason is because Donald Trump could go ahead and get this discharge petition out. Donald Trump could go ahead and define and have the DOJ define what child pornography and child sexual assault is and how it's defined when it comes to redacting names, when it comes to redacting pictures, redacting videos to protect the victims. And I found that to be so disingenuous and so silly and such an odd thing for him to say when clearly we all know exactly what it is.
Well, let me explain to all of you, because I know it's frustrating, and a lot of you can't understand sometimes why some of these silly conversations happen. But let me explain to you, somebody that was part of building MAGA, and I keep telling you, there's a percentage MAGA, the original part of MAGA, that the base that he's talking to, the message that see normal. Well, okay, let me reframe or say, when you if you're educated enough and you have enough common sense, and you're and you're willing to look at things in a proper way on both sides, it's easy common sense to you to say, listen, we have things, this is a bunch of garbage, because we have systems in place to protect the victims. We have systems in place, this could be done very quickly. We don't need to have House votes on this. This is something that's done, I mean, on an everyday basis in our judicial system. But he's not talking to that group of people, because that group of people, there's nothing that Mike Johnson could say that could, that's why you see the polls, that's why you see majority of the people. But there's a group like around 30%, the hardcore MAGA base, that doesn't really care or understand about all of these legal mumbo jumbo. So when Mike Johnson comes out there and says, gives them some speech that sounds intelligent, that sounds that, yes, it's the Democrats again up to something, that sounds like, they could be, because now when you go into these hard MAGA chat rooms, you're going to be hearing them talking about, like, listen, yeah, I'm for releasing it, but we got to protect the children, we got to protect the innocent, because it's meant for that group of people, his hardcore base, which he's trying to hold on to, because like Vicky said, that mega is in disarray. You got Tucker Carlson one corner, Steve Bannon somewhere else, you got Laura Loomer somewhere else, you got Nick Fuentes in the mix, you got conspiracy theories about Charlie Kirk. You got so much going on that we could spend hours just talking about what's breaking MAGA apart. But this is his core base. This is what Trump tapped into in 2015, 16, the group of people that never came out to vote, that these are the hardcore, believe in Trump as their leader. And now they're starting to see the lies and certain stuff that he gave. And that's where the real crack. And this is who these messages are meant to. This is who Mike Johnson is speaking to. He's not speaking to you or me. He understands that we understand that he's speaking to a certain group of people that need to get those headlines to be able to hold on to something, to be able to still keep this afloat.
Lev, I just want to play Marjorie Taylor Greene, and Vicky, you also raised this earlier on. This is her speaking this morning, talking about the breakup in MAGA and how disruptive this has been.
I only take people's actions seriously, no longer words. And what do you think the president's actions? And I'll tell you, because I wasn't a Johnny come lately to the MAGA train. I was day one 2015, and there's a big difference in those Americans and those that decided to support President Trump later on. And I'll tell you right now, this has been one of the most destructive things to MAGA, is watching the man that we supported early on, 3 elections, for people that stood hours, slept in their cars to go to rallies, have fought for truth and transparency, and to hold what we consider a corrupt government accountable. Watching this actually turn into a fight has ripped MAGA apart. And the only thing that will speak to the powerful, courageous women behind me is when action is actually taken to release these files, and the American people won't tolerate any other bullshit. That's where we are today.
I mean, that's them fighting words there, Vicky. I mean, it does feel like there's been a rift in MAGA, and that, you know, certainly she's evolved. I mean, that's not the same Marjorie Taylor Greene we saw a few months ago.
Oh my God, no. I mean, she's got to be running for something.
or from something.
I mean,
I was going to say.
but she is, I mean, she's so completely right, obviously, about all of this. And I do think that, for any woman politician to not get behind these survivors, it's just shocking. Right. I mean, but, and also when you really listen to their messages all along, they have said, this is not about party politics. This is not about partisan politics. This is about something far bigger. And Annie Farmer this morning, I thought, was very powerful when she went through the list of presidents.
I've got that clip, actually.
Yeah, I think it was really powerful, making the point this is about an institutional failure.
Yeah, let's listen to her, and then I've got a statement from her sister Maria as well. But let's take a listen to this.
In 1996, when my sister Maria bravely blew the whistle on this group by reporting to the FBI what Epstein and Maxwell did to both of us, they hung up on the phone on her, and there was no follow-up of any kind. Bill Clinton was president. In 2006, the FBI came to us, finally interviewed us, and asked us both to be witnesses against Epstein. We were very anxious, but we agreed. And then we didn't hear back from them due to their infamous sweetheart deal. George W. Bush was president. In 2015, when the DOJ was sent FOIA requests for Maria's FBI files, and they were denied, as they have been many times, Barack Obama was president. In 2019, when Epstein died in prison due to either negligence or foul play, Donald Trump was president. In 2023, Maria's attorneys sent a letter on her behalf to the government, requesting an investigation into the repeated law enforcement failures in this case, similar to what was done in the case of Larry Nassar. They declined to do so. Consequently, my sister filed notice that she would be suing the government for failing to uphold its legal, ethical, and moral duties. In 1996,
so I mean, that's pretty. It is pretty powerful. I mean, she really does make this a non-partisan issue, and she blames both presidents. And then, as I mentioned, I spoke to Maria this morning, who's recovering from, she's had a very difficult life with a lot of cancers that she's been dealing with, and it's been a very traumatic experience for her. And she got some good news on her blood tests yesterday, and was just kind of praising her sister, and praising as well the late Virginia Giuffre, who was such a support to her. And I've got the statement up that she shared with me, and I think it's important to us just to spend a minute here thinking about what Maria is going through, because she says, "I would first like to acknowledge none of this would have be happening without Virginia Roberts Giuffre. She's the hero for all teens. She's the rock upon which this case was built. Her suffering was horrific, yet she met her struggles with strength, courage, and heroism. Her family is valiantly continuing her legacy. We are all so proud of them. 30 years ago, I discovered my little sister had been lured to Zorro Ranch without my knowledge. The fear this instilled in me, after having been personally SAD sexually abused by Epstein and Maxwell, sent me reeling. I was blinded by my rage and horror that my employer had the audacity and the desire to harm my baby sister. The government knew everything because I alerted them in real time. When they returned to me 10 years later in 1996, Agent Nesbitt Kirkendall promised justice. Justice was not provided in 96, nor in 2006. By 2019, I had been hiding and moving so long to avoid Maxwell's death threats. I had lost hope. I found myself diagnosed with multiple cancers and didn't think I would survive to see this day. The two of the bravest women I will ever know. There's obviously a line missing there, but obviously it's Annie and Virginia Giuffre. They offered me hope, support, and along with Annie, someone missing there. I'll find out those names. I have sustained 5 administrations against all odds to watch my little sister stand in front of Congress today and speak the truth. Was the best 56th birthday present I could ever imagine. Whistleblowers like me are not provided protection nor support. I think our case will shed light on this fact. I acted alone in 1996 because my sister's safety was jeopardized. She was only 16. I focus entirely on teens because she didn't know how to tell me they had harmed her. She feared I would lose my employment. The fact that this brilliant young girl didn't know how to articulate the abuse made me recognize there is a huge distinction between being a teen and being an adult woman. I know to fight them, and I did. Teens do not have the capacity. The most devastating part of this case is the fact that we have lost the case here of Virginia. Humanity owes teens protection. I mean, it really is so profound and comes right down to the core of what this is all about. Any, Vicky, do you want to jump in there?
Yeah, well, obviously, I find it, the farmer's story is obviously very personally sad for me because they had an opportunity in 2002. We were ready to go with their on-record allegations at Vanity Fair. And, I've talked about how they were pulled at the 11th hour. And it was what I was worried about then happened because we had basically exposed them by putting their allegations to Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. We had made them vulnerable. And so it's horrendous to read. I mean, obviously, I know that Maria has had a horrendous life living in fear and then illness. And it's very difficult for me particularly to read that because I could have, I tried to do something about it. But I also think that what she says about, teens is definitely true. And nobody embodied that better than Virginia Giuffre. And I do suggest to everyone they read her extraordinary book, Nobody's Girl, because, I've said before, but I'll say it again. What's so moving about it is that she doesn't try to turn herself into a hero. She gives you the truth, warts and all. She says, I'd love to be able to tell you that I didn't go out and recruit other girls for Epstein. I'd love to be able to tell you that, I'm flawless, that I've never taken any drugs. But the bottom line is she's human. And she goes into great detail explaining how, part of the attraction for her of Epstein and Maxwell was that there she was a young, child who'd suffered years of abuse from her own family, she claimed. I mean, I know her father has said not so, but from the age of 7. So where Epstein and Maxwell were so clever was that I think they understood this, and she wanted them to be the family she'd never had. And so she kind of closed her eyes and tried to compartmentalize, disembody herself when the abuse was going on. Because if you separated the abuse out from it, here were mummy and daddy, and she'd never really had those figures. And that's very powerful to read and very understandable, actually.
Would you strike upon this, especially with your very honest reaction to that Maria statement? And I know she has resentment to a lot of people, and it's of course it's natural that she has that, but there has been just an overwhelming attempt by the media, by everybody, to suppress the story. I mean, certainly you did your best to try and get the story out, but it didn't get out. And I know I've tried to get the story out at various places. My story got caught and killed. This has been an overwhelming effort by a lot of very powerful people to really kill the story over and over again. So it is remarkable that we're getting to this point today that we're having this actual vote. I mean, will we ever see these files is still up in question. But the fact that so many people are so angry about it and are so motivated, especially on the floor today, so many of the women representatives, especially, were so outspoken in the way they just forcefully were demanding these files be released, whether they release them or not. I think this is a major shift politically that is going to be hard to turn around, Lev. I just don't see how they this Jeffrey Epstein story can be beaten by MAGA
Well,
and Donald Trump right now.
Well, we gotta be careful. We can't let up because somebody that knows Donald Trump very well knows all his inner circle and the way they work. Don't count them out. I mean, yes, this is a tremendous blow, but that's why what I'm telling you is what they're trying to do already set it up because there's still a year to go, which is an eternity before the midterms. And the plan right now is, to start putting out and leaking information, and to his base, to everybody, if he gives to give enough red meat. If you're listening to some of the names that he's throwing out there, remember these don't have to be illegal or criminal activities that eventually get proven. As long as the investigation is open, and as long as you get leaked salacious emails or information, or here or there, a leak here or there, you are starting to change the news cycle, and you will start changing, because if all of a sudden you get some uh, crazy email that has to do with Bill Clinton, it will all of a sudden change, like it or not, change the news cycle, and and then all of a sudden give them red meat to be able to feed
Right.
on. So what I'm saying to you is that this is a great day, and I think it's like I said, from hearing the stories you and Vicky talking about, you listening to some of the survivor stories, is just it's a tremendous first step, but we have to remember we have a long way to go, and that's why I keep telling everybody now
Yeah.
is not the time to celebrate. Now is the time to just push harder. Like one of the simple things that we need to keep pushing after this vote, while Trump is in the Senate, like uh, we need to get these survivors inside the Oval Office. We need to put enough pressure on Donald Trump, because that's one of the things that he fears a lot. Some of the inner circle, I've been hearing little chats in here, because that would blow up. He can't face them. This is a different, so that's why he's ignoring it. That's actually one of a major rift between him and Marjorie Greene. Besides everything else, there was lots of things involved, but one of the major is because she was pushing on having the survivors come into the Oval, which he's still doing. And I think that's an important thing that we need to continue doing as part of putting pressure on Donald Trump.
Just to add the breaking news here, that I think they have now passed this bill to release the Epstein files, and this is a complicated thing because I think there's one vote for the discharge petition and another vote to actually get it released. So I'm not sure that we're just seeing the first one. Maybe there's another vote still to come, but at least the first bill has passed. Dean, do you want to jump in here and just your thoughts on hearing these victim statements and what Lev was just saying?
Yeah, aside from the trap doors that Mega Mike and the GOP and Donald Trump have put into today, and aside from the fact that they have no intention, I don't believe, of ever releasing these at all, and they're going to try and find some process way, whether it be through the Senate or through language or some kind of executive order, hijinks, whatever. It doesn't really matter. I just don't think that there's still no interest. What I find to be very, very interesting is, and Marjorie Taylor Greene said it best. She no longer believes in words. Now she believes in works, right? If we look at the works and just ignore the words, Donald Trump has never once addressed the victims. He's never once talked about the victims. And a question maybe for you, Zev, and a question maybe for Vicky as well. I've read several transcripts, interviews where Sarah Ransom has admitted to spending time with Donald Trump in Jeffrey Epstein's mansion in New York City. Sarah Ransom is also part of the Epstein survivors group that was on Capitol Hill a couple of months ago, where we had our first appearance of this bipartisan group of individuals, including Marjorie Massey, Ro Khanna, and many others, and including these victims. That seems to me to be his kryptonite. It's the idea, to Lev's point, that, listen, if you say that your words are that you want justice for these victims, your words are Jeffrey Epstein's disgusting, your words are release the Epstein files. Is he just afraid that he's going to see some of these victims again? And this is a legitimate question. Or is he just so incredibly riddled with guilt with his involvement in this that he's afraid, he's literally just afraid of what's going to happen if he does meet with them
I don't
in
think he's
any
got
kind of
any.
public or private setting?
Is he guilt? Does he feel guilt? I don't think this man feels guilt. I don't think there's any sense of
No,
him
I don't think it's
showing any
about guilt.
remorse
Yeah.
here at all. I think he's been trying to suppress these women and their testimony for decades, and he's even today, he's just thoughtlessly talking about, attacking the not that it matters, but it's a woman reporter asking him questions. He's bullying her in front of the and in front of the prince and in front of the media corps, telling her what a terrible reporter she is and how awful she is, and that ABC should be suspended from the press corps because of what? Because she asked a question about Epstein and his involvement with Epstein. I mean, it's beyond. He is not capable of feeling this guilt, and he's not capable of saying that he did anything wrong, and he clearly did. I mean, I think there's a lot of evidence to suggest that he did a lot of wrong things with Jeffrey Epstein. Sorry, Vicky, go ahead.
Well, I think that we know from the emails, obviously, that came out last week. I mean, they just confirmed what I think probably everybody on this panel already knew, which was that, of course, he knew about Jeffrey Epstein's abuse of minors. And I mean, we knew because, not least because, I'm trying to remember the date, I think it's 2021, Brad Edwards, who's the attorney for most of the women who were on the Hill today, and who was the original attorney in Florida for many of the survivors, wrote how that Trump actually told him in 2009 on the phone that he had gone to Epstein's house in Palm Beach and looked out the window and seen all these young girls in the pool, and he'd asked Epstein, who they were and what they were doing there, and Epstein had given him some bullshit about a mentorship program. Now Trump told all this to their attorney, so of course he knew, but he did also, but there was that email in which Epstein wrote, I forget if he was writing to Michael Wolff, or I think it was to Michael Wolff, saying, yeah, so Trump knew about the girls. He told Ghislaine to stop.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if you take that on its face value, let's just take that on its face value, because, Dean, I've met Sarah Ransom. She's never mentioned to me the Donald Trump. I mean, the one thing I will say, none of the witnesses or none of the survivors I've ever talked to have ever claimed that Donald Trump sexually abused them. That they haven't. But, which goes, though, to your point, then why the heck does he not want to say publicly he feels so sorry for them, that he wants to meet with them? Why doesn't he put them, like everyone else who's got a shred of decency does, at the front of this narrative? Very peculiar.
Yeah, that's such a great point, Vicky. Is, even the most hardened MAGAs like MAGA Mike sat there today, and he was like, "We need ultimate maximum transparency for these victims." I feel he apologized to them on the House floor. We have never seen any empathy, public, verbal, visual empathy from Donald Trump for any of the victims. And anytime he's asked about it, he does what he did on Air Force One the other day, where he tells a female reporter to be quiet and calls her piggy. He does what he did today, where he eviscerates another female reporter and says, "Go ahead, Lev."
I'm sorry to because I just like you, because you guys have to understand who Donald Trump is. Remember where he came from, the world he came from, who his mentors were, the where he grew up. I mean, you guys are taking a picture, a snapshot of him as the president of the United States, or for the past 8 years. I mean, think about all of the Donald Trump prior to it. You know what I'm saying to you, and you have to understand that he had his own what's it called, pageants. There's a reason for it. I
Mhm.
mean, it was a different lifestyle back in the 90s and the 80s. I mean, there was competition. I mean, there was, the powerful preyed on the young woman. That's why you had the Weinsteins. Just now you didn't hear about all the stories, but Donald Trump, I mean, this is not one woman coming. I mean, just think about Katie Johnson. I know Vicky's never interviewed her, and but the fact that she, her story, and the fact that she sued and Trump never responded, never went after, tells me, I mean, so, and what I'm saying to you is, Donald Trump, what you're seeing, the way he responds to women right now, is this is how it is. This is how he feels about women. This is how they talk about it in privacy. This is when the cameras are off and when sitting there together. This is how they joke about somebody's donor's wife and stuff like that. I mean, and it's not just Donald Trump. It's a society inside of there, which I've seen because I was there when the cameras were off, when the cigars were lit, where the scotch was out, and when at 2 o'clock in the morning, where the shit that came out of their mouths that you would never believe it. So it
Giuliani
doesn't.
tried to take off his pants. Yeah, I've heard those stories.
The Katie Johnson thing is so interesting because when Jeffrey Epstein heard about the Katie Johnson case, he was forwarded the case by a Reuters reporter. This was just days before the election. The first person he emailed it to was Tom Barrack, which is a very close friend of both he and Donald Trump's, and was also about to be the campaign chair for the inauguration committee, but also had an official role within the transition. And it seems to me, and I think the thing he emailed, he said, I thought you guys would be interested. He said nuts about the case, and then he said, I thought you guys would be interested in this, or something like that. You guys, meaning, I think, Barrack and Trump would be interested in this because this is coming down the pipe.
On this vote, the yeas are 427, the
Wow.
nays are 1. 2/3 being in the affirmative. The rules are suspended. The bill is passed, and without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table.
Wow.
That's a big historic moment there.
Who's the one?
Exactly.
Who's the no? Who's the nay? I want to hear. I also, who's the nay?
I think that is just the first of two votes they have to take here, actually, because I think that is the discharge petition that is now passed.
Yeah.
What they have to do now is actually vote on the release of the Epstein files. And then
So here's a question I would ask.
Pursuant to Clause 8, Rule 20, the unfinished business is the vote on ordering the previous question on House Resolution 879, on which the yeas and nays are ordered. The clerk will report the title of the resolution.
House Calendar Number 47, House Resolution 879. Resolution providing for consideration of the joint resolution, Senate Joint Resolution 80, providing for congressional disapproval under Chapter 8 of Title 5 United States Code of the rules submitted by the Bureau of Land Management relating to National Petroleum Reserve in Alaska Integrated Activity Plan Record of Decision, providing for consideration of the joint resolution, House Joint Resolution 130.
I think it's done. I think actually that's done because this looks like a completely different bill. Obviously, I mean, this is not. So I'm guessing that what we're seeing that it is approved, and I think that the release is approved. That was probably the
It's approved. It's my son actually wrote about. I don't know how he broke it before we saw it, but that's weird. But
because he's Aaron Parnas, dude.
Yes, exactly.
It passed already before, so we knew it was going to be approved. But it's because it's Aaron. Aaron knows everything before everybody else. Somehow.
I don't know.
So here's the question I would ask, and I'll throw it out to the rest of the panel. Is that all for show? We were at 218 a week and a half ago, right? Is that all for show on behalf of Congress? Vicky, your thoughts?
Not entirely, because 2 weeks ago was before we had the elections, right, of last week. And I think you've got a lot of Republicans worried they're coming up for re-election, and that's and I mean that ultimately has to be why Trump changed his mind, right? This is just politics, because he was going to be left behind and look like an idiot, and that's my and again, that's my reason for being maybe more optimistic than you guys are about the Senate, because next year is a big year, and if people who are up for re-election vote the wrong way on this, they're going to feel it at the ballot box.
Oh no, Vicky, you're 100% right. I mean, one of the things I also am hearing, and why Trump came out also and flipped so hard, and even though Thune is giving him the wink and telling him basically that he's going to prolong it, but after that, he got information that there's like likely up to 12 Republican senators that are going to vote for it. So he understands that the pressure, there might be a delay, there might be some sort of a back and forth, which Johnson already laid the delay up for, but he understands that eventually it looks like it's going to, and especially like you said, because of the vote, because of the pressure with the midterms coming up, definitely that's part of why he's now not considered, but implementing the plan with Pam Bondi and everything else through the DOJ.
So, Vicky, here's a question I have for you too. This is Survivors Day, and you've ridden with these survivors for many years. You're so deeply entrenched in the story. You're so close, so many times. What is the recognition of 427-1 to pass the bill to get the discharge petition mean to you?
Well, it's fantastic, isn't it? I mean, it is literally like, it's victory. I mean, it's, they have worked. I mean, did you see the PSA that they did?
It's heartbreaking.
It was, yeah. I mean, it's just, I think what's just so extraordinary is, the number of times now they've congregated and repeated this message that this is, again, I come back, I sound like a stuck record. This is not about politics. This is just about common decency. It's about protecting people who are not able to protect themselves. And so, how could anyone, doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on, how can anyone vote against that? I mean, I would argue that Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, their crimes somehow are the darkest crimes almost in American history. There's something so unfathomable about it. And the idea that we as a country wouldn't stand up and say, we don't tolerate this, and we're going to protect anyone who's vulnerable, and we're going to make sure this never, ever happens again. And in order to do that, we're going to look at these files. Who wouldn't do that? It isn't politics. It's just decency.
You're absolutely right, Vicky. And of course, the president of the United States is on the other side of this. And I think that's why this is very, very important. I think the president of the United States is telling he's telling the world that he doesn't care. He might have tried to change his tune the last couple of days, but it's not working, obviously, especially with these comments today. He's saying he doesn't care. And I think that's why MAGA is going to have this divorce, just looks like a really painful divorce. But I think the realization, and you see Marjorie Taylor Greene really struggling with this, where she was, on the other clip from her today was her talking about him calling her a traitor. And she was like, no, a traitor is someone who cares only about himself and working for foreign governments. Obviously saying that was about Donald Trump. I mean, she's accusing him of being a traitor. If you told me a few weeks ago that Marjorie Taylor Greene would have come after Donald Trump and called him a traitor, I would have laughed you out of the room. But he's not got the popular support in the country. Dean, you were talking about that when you were in the States last week in the South there.
Yeah.
That he just seems to have lost it.
Betrayal.
And that's a real challenge for MAGA. It's a real challenge for America, because the president is meant to be our moral standard bearer. And if he's not our moral standard bearer, if he's Mr. Unethical and Mr. Immoral, which is what he's presenting himself to the world like, it's awful for America, but it's also awful for America with this presidency that we're having right now.
Yeah, I'll get to that word betrayal in just a second. I just want to update everybody. Surprise, surprise, Lev. Clay Higgins was the only no vote. Oh, Clay Higgins.
That's a hell of a thing to have in your record,
I know. And I didn't want to see those files. That's what he's saying. I'm not interested in transparency for victims. That's what Clay Higgins is saying. And I'm sure there's people that voted yes and feel the same way too, but we'll leave that over here for a second. When I was in the States last week, that seemed to be the common theme for anybody that I talked to that had voted for Trump in in 2024 that was so disgusted by the idea that Donald Trump is doing what he's doing, not just to their country, to these women. What's that?
We lost Lev and we got Waj instead. I don't know how that happened, but maybe we'll get.
We just flip and dip.
Yeah,
we go Waj. Okay,
yeah. Waj. Let's see if we can get him up here, and then I will, put something in the middle here because we need.
There
something
he is.
Hey, Waj, how you doing?
Hey, everyone. Hey, you got Lev back.
There's Lev back.
And we got Vicky. It's a full party.
It's a good party we have here. Waj Ali from the Left Hook is here. This is a big deal, Waj. I mean, don't you think? I mean, we're all saying it's a pretty miraculous event that this is happening.
I think the fact that all of us would be on the same Substack Live in 2025, who would have thought 3 years ago? It just shows you things might be getting better, or we might be in the seventh circle of hell. I don't know, but either way, the fact that all of us are united against pedophiles and billionaire men who have used and abused their wealth to rape girls, I think shows us there's the shred of shared humanity and decency. And I do think symbolically today is very good because it shows that there was only one defection, Clay Higgins, who was running for Donald Trump's favorite racist. But the fact is that Donald Trump, if I may, he tried, folks, because I hate being gaslit and I hate people lying to me. Donald Trump has tried his entire presidency to cover up the Epstein files. Donald Trump has tried his entire presidency to bully everyone, to spin a yarn that there's no there. This is the Epstein hoax, right? Mike Johnson in August tried his best to he did a recess. Instead of even having a vote on the Epstein files, he had a recess. They're like, nope, we're going to just shut everything down. They fired Maureen Comey, the special prosecutor. They put in Todd Blanche. Ghislaine Maxwell has no business being in a minimum security camp, getting pampered, right? That's still a huge scandal. Who authorized it? Why is she there? I mean, he's gone out of his way, Zev, to cover up what's in the Epstein files. And I've always said, if you have nothing to hide, you have nothing to lose, right? Just release the Epstein files. And
if you're not guilty, don't fucking act like it.
Exactly, Dean. And the DOJ, and I'm glad Thomas Massey reminded Americans about 3 hours ago, said, you don't need a vote. The DOJ could just release it right now.
Thank you. Trump
could have released it 3 months ago. He could have, not sworn in the congresswoman from Arizona. I mean, it's been a very long and established attempt to try and kill this entire Epstein files release. Sorry, Lev, go ahead.
No, I mean, you're both I don't want to interrupt, but I'm just saying to you, if we keep a simple message, and this is what we just keep guys saying, forget about what he says, watch what he does. I mean, he could say all he wants, but what is he doing? He's not releasing the files. He's instead opening up an investigation. He's instead putting in a lawyers like Clay Johnson in there to be able to go after it and cover it up, and to be able to not go after and leak different information. So I always say with Donald Trump, the way he could come out and say whatever he wants to say, and that's where his magic is. He knows how to manipulate the press. He knows how to manipulate the media. But one thing, that I say, if you watch what he does and not what he says, he's an open book. You can see right away.
If these files actually come out, there is a lot in there, I believe, that is going to be very traumatic for this presidency. Just knowing what I know about his financial crimes involvement, even just what we found out from the Epstein emails that were released.
I'm sorry, be right back.
No worries. Even the Epstein emails that were released the other day. I mean, there was a clear evidence there that, at least in the sale of that house in Palm Beach that had previously been owned by Wexner, the House of Friendship, that he was involved in money laundering. And that, Epstein directly points to the fact that he thought it was a fake auction for that house, that it was rigged, that it was a Russian oligarch that paid for all of that. And this is Epstein, who was there, who was a witness to all of it, who was party to all of this. And then he invokes Mark Pulte, the father of Bill Pulte, in being involved in that. I mean, this is money laundering and then tax evasion by the president of the United States. That's all we know from what his emails talk about. We don't know yet what's really in the FBI files. I mean, they could be very damaging, incredibly damaging. Vicky?
Vicky, please, go ahead.
Well, I mean, you certainly, you're 100% right, Seth, that it seems to me, based on what came out last week, that Epstein reckoned that there was the appearance certainly of money laundering with the auction of that house in Palm Beach, I mean, it would be fairly easy to look on Donald Trump's tax returns and see whether or not he declared the capital gain of whatever it was,
54 million or something like that.
Yeah. And given that we know Trump only has losses, it's pretty, you can bet that, it's unlikely that he did. And as we know,
if you remember the first year as president, he filed his tax return and claimed he only had to pay $750. If you remember
that. He doesn't follow the rules when it comes to these taxes, for sure.
And let's not forget, how in the end did Al Capone come down? So look, I mean, you're right. We don't know what's in there. I suspect that Trump is nervous. I was interested that Thomas Massie said this morning, when he was asked, why do you think, that Trump has just stonewalled and been so reluctant to do this? And Thomas Massie, I mean, I think he was speculating, said that he thought it was to do with Trump protecting billionaire donors and friends of both sides of the aisle. I mean, I am intrigued. I mean, one name that was missing from the emails that appeared last week was actually Leon Black's. And I think, Zev, you in particular know, I've got so many questions about why Leon Black really paid Jeffrey Epstein $170 million that I'd love to see that answered in the Epstein files. And Leon Black's son has a senior position in the Trump administration. So I mean, there are always and who was it? Lev pointing out the Jay Clayton connection. There are so many wheels within wheels. And then yes, you're right, Pulte being the only person who was in on that house transaction, Pulte's father.
Yeah, it's kind of something else, really. I mean,
it's actually, when you did a Venn diagram of all of this. Well, I think that's exactly what you spend your time, Zev, quite usefully doing.
Yeah, way too much time.
But it's mind-boggling.
It's always the same people. It's always the same people. They always show up. It's always exactly the same names. It's not even surprising anymore when you look up and you see that their names are there, because you expect that to be the case. Lev, you've obviously tangled in this world a little bit.
A little bit.
Surprising that they're all.
Lev's also familiar with father-son criminal Trump employees.
Yeah, I mean,
the Witkoffs come to mind.
Well, that's another thing. That I think that's a lot of people don't understand, that what I'm working on, something that is really going to be big, is with some of my sources overseas in Russia and Ukraine and in Europe, and that have there's a couple of other interesting emails that came out, and that had to do with conversations having to do with Russia, and there's, when a lot of people talk about there's compromise on Trump, one of the things that everybody was talking about was the P tape. Oh, there's a P tape. This is the compromise when Trump was in Russia, when he was there, and that was the type of compromise they were thinking about. Also, maybe some, Russian Moscow Trump building. I mean, the stuff that they were talking about. But the real compromise that I'm working on, that and now watching these Epstein emails come out, is validating a lot of the stuff that I'm hearing, is that there was a long operation here in the United States where the Russians, were, and Trump was just one of them. There was a lot of people targeted in the United States for different reasons back then in the 80s by the KGB during the Cold War that preceded it. And, they were rich, powerful men, politicians, different little, and the criteria was, some of them was looking for people that would, cross the line, people that were money hungry, power hungry, and Trump fit all those, checked all those boxes. And then when he married Ivana, it kind of, he fell into that world, into that basically. And ever since then, if you take a look at the history, I know there's been a lot of reporting about, but you'll see that Russian money, Russian association always, bails him out, always somehow intertwined in his, in the decades of going. But it wasn't just Russian money, it was also the way Russians intertwine with others, like the Epsteins of the world. And there was one very interesting email that everybody concentrates on, but I think there's a much bigger thing that we need to look at.
You
Is
talking
that
about the Bubba email? The Bubba?
the Bubba email, exactly,
Yeah.
the Bubba email. I mean,
Yeah.
everybody talks about the Bubba, but what I find interesting in there is that
There's a key in
Mark.
there. Yeah.
Well, yeah, Mark Epstein, the two brothers are having a conversation. Yeah, they're laughing at it, but the one thing that he says is that Bannon is next to him, and then he says, "Did Bannon hand over the picture
Mm.
to Putin?"
Mm.
I mean, what that shows me that Bannon is somehow either in touch with the Russians, or is sending also information, or what is bad, because that's not something you just say like
Of
to
course, yeah.
that's to, I mean,
We know
especially in
Epstein
that
was
world.
collecting blackmail. We know he was.
Correct,
So
and and Bannon is a weird individual in his own world. He plays his own different party. So what I'm saying to you is there's a lot more that Trump is trying to hide, because that's another reason why I've been reporting on why Witkoff is the main lead source to everything that happens with Russia. That's why Witkoff is summoned always to the Kremlin. That's why Witkoff has met with Putin, Kirill Dmitriev, and all of this is going on, because a lot of messages there being passed on back and forth, and that's why you see Trump very frustrated, and that's why Putin's the only person Trump doesn't act on, because of certain now information and compromise that they do really have on him, but it's compromise him about his business and his actions in the United States over the decades of years, not just some P tape or something he did overseas in Russia.
is Witkoff the new head? Sorry, can I just ask this one quick question?
Yeah,
Just a quick one, Dean.
for sure.
Is Witkoff the new head of the organization? Is he the new guy in charge? Really?
What do you mean?
It's
What do you mean by
if you could think about it as sort of a Russian mob kind of environment where you've got the Russian organized
no, no.
criminals that have
Witkoff's the messenger.
this messenger.
Witkoff's the messenger, and then you got Witkoff's son. Actually, they have interesting, and there's some more reporting I'm going to do later on. But Witkoff's son Zach is overseeing the Twiddledee Twiddledum, Don Jr. and Eric, and is
Global cash
basically
grabbing. Yeah.
Yeah.
correct.
$1.5 billion the
So
Witkoff's got from the Gulf states.
Yeah.
yeah,
Unbelievable.
so I mean, so there it's wholly intertwined, but Witkoff and Trump go back. I mean, way back. I mean, Witkoff, I think, was even one of his real estate attorneys before Witkoff became a billionaire in his own right in real estate, going way back. So and Witkoff also was involved in a lot of the Russian fluctuation of that Russian money in the '90s into his own properties. I mean, I've reported on Witkoff's relation with Golubchik and Russian organized crime. Him giving a reference letter to to one of them for them to get an apartment in a high-rise building. And then actually the interesting part is, and then when he in the indictment, I think, or and then the federal, when he was asked why he signed that letter, he said he didn't even know the guy. He did it as a favor to somebody. Who was that somebody? I mean, so I mean, we could go back and forth, but there's a reason why this is happening, and there's a truly a compromise that that they have on Trump. What that is, I don't know yet, and but believe me, we'll be breaking it as soon as we get it.
My understanding is it's at 40 years worth, right? 40 years
Yeah, it's a
of
long.
compromise. Yeah, and starting out as a useful idiot, and obviously, as useful as he is to other people, completely useless to the United States of America. Going back to that email, and I saw Waj go, with the Bubba email. Yes, I still want to know who Bubba is, and we'll get to that another time. But that wasn't the point. The point was it proved out the idea that Jeffrey Epstein was actively trying to pass compromise over to the Kremlin. And there was another email, if you remember this email exchange, where Jeffrey Epstein was talking about how he had a handler named Vitaly Shurkin, Victor Churkin. And Victor Churkin was great because he understood what he wanted to do with Trump after a couple of conversations, but Victor's dead. So he posits this question to the former Prime Minister of Norway. He's like, hey, listen, I got a package for you, effectively. I'm going to give it to you. You're going to give it to Lavrov's assistant when you see him next week. Is that cool? And the Norwegian PM's like, yeah, totally. That's totally cool. And what amazes me about those two emails, just those two emails, to your point, and again, yes, I want to know who Bubba is, but what amazes me about both of those emails is for years we've been talking about, a Manchurian candidate. For years we've been talking about how compromised Donald Trump is. And these emails came to us through the Epstein estate. They didn't come to us through the FBI. They didn't come to us through any. And I thought to myself, I wonder what else is in the FBI files. I wonder what else they know, because these are just email exchanges between Jeffrey Epstein and Mark Epstein, or Jeffrey Epstein and the former prime minister of Norway. So, like, the importance of getting those FBI files, everything we have, not just for the victims, but for the insidious foreign interference and the sedition on behalf of guys like Donald Trump. That's what I'm super interested in today.
Well, can I just say, I think just some table setting. If you just step back and look what's happening, even today, right now, what's happening in the United States of America with MBS getting literally the royal treatment in the White House with flyover of jets and Saudi, flags, and Donald Trump saying he's so great on human rights. Everything's transactional and pay for play. He's great, fantastic. I love the MBS. As this is happening, it was also released that Jared Kushner wanted a meeting between Epstein and Harvey Weinstein, right? Jared Kushner got $2 billion from MBS, let's not forget. And the first, meeting that Donald Trump had in the first administration was where? The first international meeting is he flew to Saudi Arabia, where Steve Bannon, who's a complete Islamophobic bigot, but for the right price, he's dancing with swords, right? Mm-hmm. And then we found out that Ehud Barak was pictured many times with Jeffrey Epstein at Jeffrey Epstein's New York apartment. Oh, that townhouse that was just given to him by Leon Black, because who doesn't give a $70 million townhouse as a gift for free to your friend? And then Dropsite a couple of days ago released emails where Ehud Barak's aide, guess where he stayed, folks, when he was in New York? Anyone take a guess?
The Wexner Mansion
townhouse.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say Lutnick's house next door.
Yeah. I mean, so this is what we're witnessing right now. If we really step back for a second, it's like if you see the Broligarchy's WhatsApp chat, like if there's a text thread between all of us, there'll be some nerdy journalist content, but this is like us getting an insight into the WhatsApp thread of some of the world's most powerful, wealthy people, Larry Summers, Prince Andrews, right? And so there's a there. And the money trail, I think, is one that will connect many of these individuals and their unsavory connections to Epstein, to some potential compromise. And also, if you think about it, if Jeffrey Epstein allegedly had video cameras, not by allegedly, people have said that he had a video camera all throughout his townhouse, right? Mm-hmm. If you are a foreign government, suppose you're the U.S. government, and I know that some of the world's most powerful people, hell, even a prime minister, are going through these halls, and maybe there's some scandalous stuff happening. I now can use Epstein as an witting or unwitting agent, right? He has compromised on some of the world's most powerful, influential people that I, as a foreign government, would love to have. And the two countries that are always associated with Epstein, right, in addition to the United States of America, it's always Russia and Israel, right? Mm-hmm. Those are the countries that keep coming up again and again and again. The money trail is the there that I think could be the thread that kind of, if you will, unravels this. And furthermore, I want to remind people, Alex Acosta, who helped give Epstein that sweetheart deal in 2008, the Wall Street Journal reported that the reason why he got the sweetheart deal is because Alex Acosta said that Epstein was an agent, and Epstein was apparently helping intelligence. Of course, Alex Acosta doesn't confirm that, but that was based on Wall Street Journal reporting. So we have potentially, folks, I mean, just look what happened yesterday to Larry Summers. Larry Summers is now apparently he's person non grata in Harvard. A Harvard student said that she walked past his office in Harvard. It's empty. And this is a situation that I think we have to look beyond just Epstein. We have to look beyond just Donald Trump. We have to look at these powerful cabal of men. It's folks, in a strange look, Epstein was a convicted pedophile in 2008. Like, it was known. And so the question then is, Larry Summers, why are you emailing a convicted pedophile up to the time that he was arrested in 2019, asking him for advice on dating a girl while you were married, and that girl was, by the way, your mentee in Harvard? You see what I'm saying, Dean?
Yeah. No, there's a lot of very powerful men here. And the network.
Leon Black, as Vicky said, I want to know about him. Leslie Wexner, they're both alive, right, Vicky? Yeah. They're both alive.
Deepak Chopra was
Alan
in Lagos
Dershowitz is
yesterday.
alive. Alan Dershowitz is alive. I mean,
Dershowitz.
barely.
No, I mean, it's true. There's a network of men here who are involved in something. But the question I have is, there's no other reason for Epstein to do all of this, to have collected all this compromise. The only real reason he would have done this is for a foreign government. I mean, you have to really ask yourself, who else has the need for all this compromise? Is it an individual? Is he really going around blackmailing all these people? Not likely. It's far more likely that, these foreign governments, who, by the way, the prime minister is sending him a ton of emails after he's prime minister and after he's the defense minister, but still sending him a ton of emails saying, can we talk? Can we talk every morning? Meeting every day for a year, every month for a year, over 30 meetings with Ehud Barak, negotiating, appointments with Putin, talking to Victor Chernin. I mean, there's a lot of espionage kind of activity going on here.
I mean,
but
if you've seen from the emails, he's such a loquacious, eloquent man.
Mhm.
I mean, it's so erudite with brilliant spelling.
Clearly, spelling is terrible.
That was for you, Vicky. I know you would have enjoyed that.
That was good. Yeah, he. You know what I loved about Epstein's emails? He is so good at this. He barely knows how to punctuate or use capitals to start a fucking sentence.
It's true.
But dude, listen, we're talking about, and Lev, go ahead. But we're talking about the real essence of, and Waj, you hit the nail on the head as always, is that we have a very, very serious male oligarch problem in North America, specifically in the United States. Go ahead.
You said the proper word, oligarch, because everything you guys are talking about Epstein, he was really an oligarch. This is what oligarchs do. He's nothing different. That's why we look at spies. But let me give you an example, because I lived in that world. I also, and I wasn't an oligarch, but trust me when I tell you, I had diplomats, and Vicky will tell you she probably looked through all my crazy emails and stuff like that reporting on me. But if you would have looked at some of the conversation and some of the people that do, when you're in that power world, these oligarchs, with the first thing, like Dimitri Firtash, for instance, I mean, he controlled the UK. I mean, they go in there, they buy these ambassadors, these senators, all these, they all want money. They all want, and that's why these all super PACs, all of this foreign money, and all, that's how, I mean, it's just pure lobbies. They walk in there, they donate money, they donate to charities, they wine and dine, and all of these people eventually start being friends, start giving information, start talking. And at the end of the day, you gotta understand that most of them are connected to people like Putin, people like others, and the information flows up the chain, goes down the chain. And that's the way, it works. So Epstein, that, he didn't have to have a contract. He didn't have to be an actual agent for Israel or an actual agent for Russia, but he was, in that world where it was, he was very wealthy. He played in that field of games. He dealt with ambassadors. He dealt different countries, and he dealt with the corruption, and that's what all of these people were corrupt. And that, but the real story is that how they then went and abused all of these thousands and thousands of kids and children and girls and women that were covered up. The financial is one thing, but the fact that they're covering up, and like today we saw 5 administration guys. This is what I'm saying. This is not right or blue or red, or this is, I mean, there's and they all need
it's
to
not
go
political.
down. It doesn't matter. No, it can't be.
But it does matter that he did do the stuff for foreign governments. I mean, I do think it's easy to say it, he could have been something else, or he could have been, we all try to find ways of saying he isn't an agent. On the other hand, there's kind of a lot of evidence that he was. And
also, I'm going to push back. Yeah. Or was he, to Lev's point, was he in it for the money for himself? I mean, because yes, he was obviously really, really close to Ehud Barak, and obviously Ghislaine Maxwell, we know about her father and his special role and relationship with Israel. But, I mean, that email that you were referring to, Dean, where, he's basically trying to insert himself into every high-level conversation that's going on. And even though he and Trump aren't speaking, he's trying to insert himself as sort of the mediator between Russia and the United States, which is crazy, right? But because he's fallen out with Trump. And to answer your earlier question, I'm sure that's why he emailed Tom Barrack Zev, because he can't get to Trump, so he gets to Trump, one of Trump's closest friends.
Or maybe there's something more sinister going on. I mean, maybe he's, if you've got all this compromise on Donald Trump or anybody else, you don't want to actually reveal the pictures. So you don't want to reveal the photos. You want to hold it. You want to make Trump president, and then you want to hold it over him so you get your policy decisions that you want and you get your policy direction that you want. Otherwise, what's the point of the compromise if you're not going to get the quid pro quo situation? You're threatening them with release so you can get something in return. And then you look at what he's done with Israel, and you look at what he's done with Russia in terms of policy. And Donald Trump looks like he's obviously compromised in that regard.
Can I just say one thing? You guys you keep mentioning one name that is extremely important, and nobody, Tom Barrack. Tom Barrack is a very major player in all of this stuff. And you're talking about Epstein. Tom Barrack is another Epstein type of a situation. I'm not saying it from a pedophilia or criminal. I'm talking about worldwide connections and dealings because, and I even remember when me and my ex-partner, Igor used to tell me stories that in Ukraine that, some of the dealings that Tom Barrack, Manafort, and worldwide, and so Tom Barrack is a very, very important figure in this, and and they ran together, and for some reason he keeps slipping through. I mean, even he got indicted, he got off, then he became ambassador. He went. I mean, if you take a look, he is a very, very, very one of the most powerful guys, that you don't hear, that you don't deal with, but he definitely is a link to a lot of the stuff you're talking about.
If I can too, Vicky, I would agree with you. I think Jeffrey Epstein's MO is greed. I think Jeffrey Epstein's MO is money. I think Jeffrey Epstein's MO is trying to stay out of prison. I think Jeffrey Epstein, if he could, would have sold Donald Trump out, saying he was 75% of the way there. Another couple of emails that sort of prove that out, an email between him and Ehud Barak saying, hey, good opportunity to monetize that war over there. What do you think? And Ehud Barak goes, yeah, we can't turn that into cash flow immediately. I'll call you tomorrow. And then there's another series of emails where Jeffrey Epstein, to your point, inserting himself email to Tom Barrack, and he's like, hey, our next big investment, what we need to do is regime change in Venezuela because they have more oil than Saudi Arabia. Like, he always shows up or seemed to show up anytime there might have been regime change, to be able to pimp his relationships, to be able to feed his own ego, to feed his own greed. I just, I think espionage might have been, what he had to do to be able to be the person that he probably was.
It's this whole murky ground. Just to throw this in here, there's this deep state shadow world that exists between espionage and big business around the world. It is, and there's the soft edge of government that they get things done for money, and they do things that are, not quite, in line with the law. They do this all the time. As every government has this kind of, system. So that's where Jeffrey Epstein feels in. He's not, if it's in, he's not completely an espionage agent in that getting a paycheck every month from, Mossad or whomever, but he is part of this murky world that exists between real government and organized
shadow
crime.
Diplomacy. Lev wrote the book.
About this.
But you know what? It's and just to your point where you say, they don't get a salary, but that's not how it works in that world, because you're talking about billions. They get contracts, they get favors done. I'm saying to you, they work in a world where, like, I'm not gonna mention names, but Vicky knows we have some very close friends in that world that like that they just do. I'll do you a favor. I get this contract. These contracts are worth, billions, millions, hundreds of millions of dollars, from oil to cement to all kinds of stuff. So that's why it's not like, he's on a payroll, but it's like, Ehud Barak could ask him something, and in return he could get a transaction or a deal. This is how it's done in that world. They're not on a paycheck where they're getting 1,000 or it's not about
money.
It's a different world. It's right. It's a different world.
It's also, but think about it. He's sitting on information, some of the most incriminating, damaging information revolving around some of the world's most powerful people. And what could be more damaging than, I have videotape and photos of you having sex with girls? And that alone, the kind of one, well, I was going to say that's the one thing that we can all agree on, but according to Megyn Kelly, 15-year-old, 14-year-olds, at least she's not a 5-year-old. So Fox in the past week has tried very desperately, and the right wing has tried in some part to say that, it wasn't really pedophilia, was it really? And the majority of Americans are saying, yes, it was wrong, it's criminal, it's disgusting, it's vile, right? So it's one of those situations with Epstein that, the sway, it's so fascinating. And Vicky and I have talked about this on the left hook, is if you look at the emails that were released by the New York Times, I think last month, Leon Black and Epstein, right? Here's Epstein, a man who can barely spell. Here's Epstein, who by all accounts is not that smart, not that bright, not that interesting. College dropout. Here's Epstein, some people walk into a room and you're like, that guy, he's not that wealthy or powerful, but man, he tells great stories. This guy seems like, by all accounts, a person who's quite dull and says some of the dumbest things, right? And people just kind of tolerate it. And you sit there and you go, what would allow a Leon Black, a powerful billionaire, a man who's the captain of industries, right? A man who has crushed peasants and peons, right? To be belittled and mocked and ridiculed in emails by Jeffrey Epstein. If you read those emails, Jeffrey Epstein's mocking him, bullying him, mocking his children, and Leon Black just sits there and takes it. Right? Like, what would cause Leslie Wexner, who's a billionaire, who's not stupid, to give the crown jewel townhouse of New York worth $70 million to Epstein for free, guys? Like, what, the fact that Epstein is in these regular conversations with Larry Summers and has these dinners with all these, like, powerful men, like, Chomsky's emailing him and Woody Allen, all these people. This person clearly is not that bright. This person clearly, like you said, is a dropout. I am not convinced of his brilliance or aptitude for money laundering. Maybe he had it, right? What does he have? This is a person who has access, and he has access because he has information, compromising information on the world's most powerful people, right? And that information, like, and going back, trying to connect the dots, right? Like, Lev, I see it like you, with that type of information, you don't have to be an outright agent. You don't have to wear a tag that says, I am an agent of Israel or I am an agent of Russia. But you then become, if you will, to Zev's point, an unwitting agent, knowing full well how you are being used by these governments and how you are using them. All these emails that have come out, and these are just the tip of the iceberg, folks, because a piece of good news, and I just want, if I may, everyone's saying, oh, there's the files, the vote happened. Donald Trump is not going to release these files. His Department of Justice isn't going to release these files. What Donald Trump is going to say is, look, I told them to vote for it. They did. Look, oops, DOJ is doing an investigation. Okay, they can't release it. So Pam Bondi is going to say the DOJ has an active investigation. They can't release the files. They're going to keep punting it, folks. They're going to keep punting it. There's no way they're going to release these files. And then Epstein's brother came out yesterday, and I'm glad he made this point. He goes, even if they release the files, there have been thousands of FBI agents working around the clock, working to scrub Donald Trump's names from these files. Now, this is the good news. Some people might say, oh, God, that's so deflating. That's so disheartening. There are 4 leaks, if I may, that he can't plug. These are the leaks. Number 1, the Epstein estate. They still have files, and they've given those files to the Democrats who haven't released all of them, number 1. Number 2, Ghislaine Maxwell. Her ass ain't sitting in prison. If she sees CZ of Binance free and George Santos free, do you think Ghislaine Maxwell?
Oh, she's already pushing. She's already pushing.
Number 3, the FBI agents who have allegedly seen these files, according to some whistleblowers, they're so horrified by what they've seen, and this administration is so reckless and stupid that, folks, the FBI agents who were tasked with removing and scrubbing Donald Trump's names, they all worked from the same shareable Excel sheet. So
they didn't lock it down. Yeah,
they didn't lock it down. So that's a 3rd leak. And then the 4th leak.
1,000 people, by the way, spent a lot of time looking at those documents. If they're not leaking, and they will leak.
Apparently, according to some whistleblowers, they were horrified by what they saw. Horrified. Sure. And then finally, I would say your 4th leak, and going back, I think our central focus should be the survivors. If you've seen, there was this powerful ad that came out over the weekend. It's the first time I saw it. It was really powerful. These women are now more emboldened finally. Like they've been saying this for 20 years.
And today's going to supercharge that, by the way.
Virginia Giuffre outed Andrew years ago. But a girl, a woman, who cares? Property. We don't pay attention to these girls. But now they are. And these women came out. Their faces were there. About these six women And they had these photos, for those who haven't seen it, they have the photos of themselves as girls. And they said, I was 16, I was 14, I was 15. There's thousands of survivors, these girls who are now women. And now they're more emboldened, guys. They aren't going to shut up. So you tell me how Trump and the broligarchy that we've talked about plugs these 4 leaks, because I don't think they can.
Vicky, I want to hear from you on that.
No, I don't. I have said all through. I am the optimist here because I think the files, possibly in an imperfect fashion, will be released, because I think the drumbeat, the tide is against Trump on this. And, let's not forget, the guy has to have some populist sensibility in him. After all, he was, TV reality star, etc., etc. I think something will have to come out, or he'll lose his entire base, and he'll lose the support of his party. So,
But that's the
yes,
scary part, Vicky.
listen. There have been leaks all along. If you've been paying careful attention, it's been quite clear that, particularly, I would say, Jason Leopold, who at Bloomberg, and sometimes the Wall Street Journal and sometimes the New York Times, somebody has been sending them discovery that isn't in the hands of other people. I mean, those emails from Jeffrey Epstein to Leon Black calling his sons retarded, those were not in the public domain, and I have no idea where those came from. And similarly, Jason Leopold got a whole bunch of emails that Jeffrey Epstein wrote to Ghislaine Maxwell, documents of gifts Epstein sent around. Those have not been in the public domain. So there are definitely leaks. I want to say something, though, to Woj. So I don't think you should be fooled by Jeffrey Epstein's dreadful spelling. Because, there was a whole episode in Chasing Ghislaine, the podcast series that I did, where I talk about what an extraordinary con artist he was. And I am very sure that the dreadful spelling and grammar is all part of his shtick. It's all part of an act. It actually, in a way, he's playing psychological games. These people are not people who are they're used to people taking hours over emails to them, all proper grammar, proper spelling. He's kind of telling them, I can hardly be bothered when I'm writing to you. It's a power game. And the one thing I would say, I think he did make money. He definitely made money for Leon Black. The question is, how? He definitely made money for Leslie Wexner. Again, the question is, how? Because we know that what he knew a lot about was offshore stuff. He knew how to do with money. He knew to put money in offshore places, and he gave people tax advice that certainly ordinary law firms and ordinary accountants would not be giving. And I think that's really important to remember.
Similar to
I'd also say,
like Mark Rich. Remember Mark Rich?
Les Wexner gave him, the most extraordinary thing that Les Wexner did was to give him power of attorney. Well, that's an extraordinary thing. More extraordinary than giving him the townhouse. And I know that Jeffrey Epstein said to somebody else, well, if you give me power of attorney, it covers you. Then if I do something with your money, I'm the person who gets blamed, not So I just think don't be so sure that he wasn't useful.
Well, can I respond real quick to Vicky? Real quick, I agree. The reason why I think that wasn't what put him over the top as this Svengali, right, was there are a lot of men who are gifted in money laundering and fraud, and they're rewarded, and they make these powerful people money. But Jeffrey Epstein is at another level, a higher echelon, if you will, with his exploits. And what I believe is, in addition to him helping these people make money, like you said, we still haven't found out exactly how, he also had some information on them that would allow him to behave in such an insulting way to the titans of industry, and they would just sit there and say, yes, may I have another? That's all I'm saying.
I think you're both right. I think you're both right. I think at some point he to propel to get to a certain thing, like knowing a lot of people, even a lot of oligarchs, that you would never believe that's in their past. They had to do certain things to get to where they are. So yes, I truly believe somewhere in the beginning, with there had to have been something, very, to be able to get where he got. But then once you get into that world, and like Vicky said, I mean, I've met lots of con artists that are make hundreds of millions of dollars. They can't even read, but that's part of their shtick. It's part of, like, the way their power moves. But the one thing also I want to touch on, what Vicky said, is I think extremely important. And I think this is where the problem lies. Uh, you said that we're going to get some sort of information, and I agree with you that we are going to get some sort of information. I agree with you that it's too much of a move that's happening right now, that they can't hold it back. But what is that information really going to be? That's the key, because what I'm hearing and what's being set up is, yes, we're going to get information about Clinton. Probably we're going to get information against some of the other people that Trump is mentioning, and that will also be huge news. It's going to give a lot of base, and especially depending on what comes out. But we're not. The problem is, we're not going to get the whole information, and that is what we need, because to hold everybody accountable, and this is what I think we're all on the same page, is that we need the release of all the files. And the bottom line is, I think we need to stop letting Trump play the games, and I think we need to stop playing these let's vote here and Trump said that. And I think there has to be a massive voice from both sides to say, we don't. It's not about a vote. Release the files. Stop the investigation. Release the files. That you said 2 months ago there was nothing. You closed the investigation, saying that you went through extenuous. I mean, you went inside out. There was nothing there, and that's why you had to close it. And now you're opening it up. I mean, these facts alone, that they're allowing this to transpire, has to be more of a in the air than just talking about this vote or what's going to happen next. Because the bottom line is, Trump could release the files today. We don't have to go through any of that, and that has to be the pressure campaign and the message that we all have to push.
Yeah, all the
as loud as
files,
possible.
absolutely, all the files need to be released.
All the files.
Can I just throw in something here provocatively, maybe? Vicky, what you were saying about, he made Leon Black money, he made Wexler money. I think he also made Donald Trump money, and I think that's going to be a really interesting case for us to investigate. Is how much tax advice was Jeffrey Epstein giving to Donald Trump over the years? How much money did he save Donald Trump over the years? Because Donald Trump, as we pointed out, did not pay very many taxes. And we know that he got these boosts of money every time he got bankrupt. So he suddenly emerged out of bankruptcy. Well, how did he make that money? And did it come from Epstein? And did that advice come from Epstein? And I think that could be in the files too, which is a really important question to answer.
Wow. I know why you're asking the question, because it certainly seems in the emails that were released last week that Epstein believes he has a working knowledge of Trump's finances. And I know that he did claim to Michael Wolff he'd advised him and helped him get out of bankruptcy and all the rest of it. So I think that, it's a very reasonable question to ask. And I was anxious to find out the answer.
Well, plus the hundreds of millions that he was convicted in evading taxes. I mean, like we have that on our schedule too, right?
Yeah.
By the way, has Michael Wolff responded to any of you?
I asked Michael Wolff this question. He said he did. He said he did help him.
He responded to you after the emails?
Not after the emails, but before the
after the emails.
I emailed him inviting him back. I had just coincidentally interviewed him 2 days before on last Monday. And then I said, hey, man, you're all up in the news. You want to come by and talk about it? But
he has emailed me back, and he said that he's busy. He won't be around today.
I think you want a Don show. You want a Don Lemmy show.
He is writing. Yeah. I mean, he's writing.
But when I asked him the question, to your point, Lev, and I asked him whether there was any business relationship, he remembered a time in '96, I think, when Trump was bankrupt and he got this huge boon of money, maybe from the Russians, very likely from the Russians. and that that involved a tax bill, and that Epstein helped him figure out a way around that tax bill. And that's something that Michael Wolff says he got from Epstein, and so he knows something, and there's a there maybe that we need to be
Well,
digging.
if I'm not mistaken, and correct me if I'm wrong, Vicky, Waj, Lev, Zev, correct me if I'm wrong, but Michael Wolff also was engaged in possibly buying a magazine with Jeffrey
Yeah.
Epstein. Yeah. Michael Wolff also kind of, according to some of the emails that I've seen from the estate, was sort of acting like an advisor and a consigliere. And now he's painting himself as this journalist, and I don't want to poop where I eat here, Zev, because you and I do something every day together. I know you had Michael on the show the other day, but I am shocked. I am shocked about his involvement, by his conflict of interest, and I'm shocked that he has been willing to sit on that relationship for what is apparently looks like obvious reasons, in the radio silence that we see, suspicious radio silence from certain people like Michael Wolff. I would love, specifically Vicky, if you could kind of weigh in on that, and Waj, you guys, and Zev, because I find it very, very interesting. I also think there's another conversation there about other people that have been harboring lots of information, not telling the truth about their relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. You clearly know why, but hero or complicit? That's the question I have.
Well, he's definitely not a hero, Michael. I mean, and
I was gonna say
whistleblower
also.
or complicit, not a hero.
Definitely not a hero. And look, I think it's very, very problematic. And I think I said this to Waj the other day, because, as we all know, in the world of investigative journalism, in order to get to know a source and in order to get information, you have to build trust. But there's a difference between building trust and, to your point, giving PR advice. And I think in Jeffrey Epstein's case, the normal rules, if you can call them that, don't apply, because Jeffrey Epstein, he's not a white collar criminal. He is a pedophile. And so I think that one ought, as a journalist, to therefore apply all sorts of extra caution when going in to deal with him. And quite clearly, Michael did not, and went the other way. Now, I've listened, I know Waj has, to Michael's justification of this, that it's because he needed Epstein because his real target was Trump, and he needed Epstein to therefore think he was on side. But of course, the trouble with that is that actually it turns out that Michael Wolff knew a lot more about Trump from 2015 to 2020 than Jeffrey Epstein did. It was Epstein who was using Michael Wolff to learn about Trump. So I think it's really problematic. It's not the first time that Michael has had a run-in with doing things the Michael Wolff way, which is not the way that anyone else does things. If I had to predict, I will say Michael Wolff will survive this. He doesn't see himself as a traditional journalist. And it's interesting, when the day that these emails first were published, I found myself at a journalist sort of dinner, big gala dinner for Harper's Magazine in New York. And so there were a lot of journalists there, and there was a lot of chatter about Michael Wolff. But one person said to me, Michael Wolff is Michael Wolff. He does things his way. The ethics of it have always been questionable. And he's just ridden that storm. But for Landon Thomas Jr., who was the reporter who was working for the New York Times, that is really, really problematic. I mean, Michael will shrug this off. I mean, it's not how I would have reported on Jeffrey Epstein. He has, Dean, the other thing is Michael has written about this. It's just very few people paid attention to it. He wrote a book, and he put a chapter in at the end in which he actually talked all about how he and Steve Bannon and Reed Weingarten, who was Epstein's attorney, all sat there in 2019, in the last 6 months before Epstein was arrested, but as the noose was tightening, not in prison, but metaphorically.
Yeah.
And how they coached him. And this is what Bannon has tapes of, but Michael has written about this, how they coached him for a hypothetical 60 minutes episode, in which Epstein would somehow try to, go on TV and shift public opinion. And why this, I don't know why at the time when Michael's book was published, people didn't pay much more attention to this, but they should have. I also happen to know that Michael has tried to sell a book on Jeffrey Epstein with all the material that he got from 26, throughout the years, and he couldn't find any takers.
That's interesting,
isn't it?
Yeah, it is interesting. Look, I have a lot of time for him getting the story, and I think he got the story. And I think someone put out a piece the other day saying, Michael Wolff got the story that everyone else couldn't, and he did. I mean, he got into this very rarefied group of people, this network of very exclusive people that it's very hard to penetrate, and he was there, and he got to see the whole thing. Does it make him the most ethical journalist in the world? No. Did he get the story, though? Yes, he did. He got the story. He got the story that we're all counting on right now. And even the fact checks, the emails that we're seeing, Jeffrey Epstein responding to Michael Wolff are very useful now in prosecuting the case against Donald Trump and everybody else. Because, as you know, we wouldn't have got that information about the house in the Palm Beach house if it wasn't for that exchange between Epstein and Wolff. So I'm not defending how he did it, but it sure is useful to have all that information, and we wouldn't have had it right now. And I'm sure the Epstein tapes, the audio tapes or videotapes, also have a lot of interesting information that if we can get our hands on, could help us solve this big riddle that we're all still trying to figure out. I mean, as much as we all think we know so much about the story, there's a lot that we don't know. And maybe that's a good place to just end it as well for tonight. But Lev, why don't you go around? We'll go around the horn here and just get last opinions from everybody on that question or anything else you want to talk about.
Yeah, well, I mean, what you're talking about is, when it comes to Michael Wolff, I mean, I have a separate issue. I mean, there's a line of journalism, and then there's a line of where you're going to business, and I've seen people like that in that world that play that line, and because there's a lot of money involved, like you talked about buying magazines, and then once you get certain information on certain powerful people, then it becomes a totally different game, because once you have information in that world is even more powerful, to be able to be used up. And the fact that we're sitting here and right now trying to figure out what that email was with Michael Wolff. And this is where I have an issue. Michael Wolff, just got $800,000 because people supported him to go sue Melania and support his thing. People are supporting him, when he came out here and should be out here just like he was when he was promoting his GoFundMe, when he was promoting his book. He should be out here telling us what those emails were about.
Bingo.
It's no big deal, he should be talking about, and he should be releasing more emails, because these, again, we're just getting emails from there. Now it's a time already beyond just to sell a book or something. So that is my opinion on the whole thing. I'm not trying to shit on Michael Wolff. I don't know the guy. I've never met him. It's actually interesting. He wanted to do an interview with me on Substack. Literally, I was trying to get his email from Zev the day that the emails dropped. I was telling Waj the same thing, and then we all were trying to get him. So look, I believe everybody, look, I was in the same position. I think me and Waj were talking about on your show a while ago. And Vicky knows I had tapes of me and Donald Trump having dinner where he got rid of the ambassador. And I could have held those tapes and used them when the impeachment was coming out and started leaking them a little bit here at time when Donald Trump would have been saying, oh, I don't know, I wasn't there, and start doing that. But I chose to with my lawyer to send it to all the journalists and everything, because I thought it was important for our national security. It was important for our country to see the truth of what was going on, and not try to just monetize it. Like I said, I understand There's a line in journalism, people that write books, and it's a fine line. But I think we're living right now in a time where I think that line we need to go forward. I mean, because if you have evidence, if you're sitting on all of these emails, and if you're sitting on pictures like he's talking
Yeah.
about, and all of
Yeah.
this stuff that I'm sorry.
Yeah.
We need to put more pressure on Michael Wolff to come out and say maybe Congress should subpoena him. I don't know.
Maybe
Maybe
they might.
Congress should,
This could be a case there.
subpoena him, and yeah, and say, like, what do you have? What is that? What are you trying to sell that nobody wants to buy? What do you have? Because he keeps saying he has a lot of stuff that, but he's just not releasing it.
Lev, just final thoughts on the day, because it's a big day today. The vote was significant, obviously.
Yeah, no, I've listened. I mean, I think for the survivors, and it's a huge step today. I think for people like Vicky, for Yusef, for Wash, for all of you independent journalists that have been on this for a long, I think it's a huge day. I think it's a huge step. But at the end of the day, I want to remind everybody, because I don't like to sugarcoat things. Somebody, I know Donald Trump personally. I know his inner circle. He's not going down without a fight. This is just the first step. So, let's enjoy the day, a little bit of the victory, but let's understand that we have a long fight ahead of us, and we need to keep going, and we can't slow down for 1 second until at least we win the House and the Senate back. Then we could talk about everything else.
Lev Parnas from Lev Remembers. Waj, tell us your thoughts today, and you're going to talk about Michael Wolff as well. But it is a significant day.
Yeah, final thoughts is I've said that there are two Achilles cankles for Donald Trump, the Epstein files and the economy. And you've seen these Achilles cankles now weaken him. You've seen for the first time ever a shift in MAGA away from their king and daddy. You've seen him turn on Marjorie Taylor Greene. You've seen him turn on Thomas Massie. You saw Laura Loomer today come out and say, I think GOP has Nazis. You've seen Laura Loomer versus Tucker Carlson. You're seeing Ben Shapiro versus Nick Fuentes. You saw now Benny Johnson come out on his podcast and say, I demand the release of the Epstein files. I'm sick and tired of this. You've seen them radicalizing their own base for 10 years with some of the most harmful conspiracy theories about QAnon and the rest of us, anyone who opposes Trump. They called us folks, literally, they said that we are child sex traffickers who worship the devil. And that QAnon conspiracy has radicalized members of the MAGA base to commit violence. Ashley Babbitt, Vance Bolter, who had a hit list of 70 Democrats. He killed Melissa Hortman and her family. That was QAnon. So he has radicalized his base, and he has promised his base for 10 years that he and he alone can uncover this pedophile ring of all of us, anyone who's his critic. That's what they call us, folks. And the Rosetta Stone was the Epstein files. So they radicalized their base, and they promised the release of the Epstein files. But there's one problem. Donald Trump is all up in the Epstein files. Even in the emails that we got last week, the 20,000 emails, the name that is number one, and we don't know why, but the name is number one is Donald Trump. So
2,300 times, Wash. 2,300 times.
Thank you so much. 2,300 times. And we still don't know anything. And furthermore, I want you all to realize, I agree with Lev. You can be optimistic because it is a big day, because you see the major break now. But at the same time, Donald Trump for the past year has behaved like a guilty man. If he was innocent, he would have released the Epstein files. I have nothing to hide. I have nothing to lose. Instead, Ghislaine Maxwell is in a minimum security camp. Instead, Mike Johnson did everything to make sure that there wasn't a vote on the Epstein files, going as so far as to call recess early in August, not swear in Adelita Grijalva for 2 months, right? So if you think now all of a sudden Trump's going to be like, okay, release the Epstein files. Oh, no. I am with the cynics who believe that he'll say, oh, the DOJ has an investigation, sorry, or they're going to release highly redacted files. However, the optimist, now for the optimist of Vicky, is too many people know, too many people care, too much information is out, too many threads are being exposed. And I think when you see the base now saying release the Epstein files, it's drip, drip, drip. The dam is cracking, folks. He cannot contain this. And these are the 4 leaks that I said that he cannot plug up: the survivors, Ghislaine Maxwell, the Epstein estate, and also the FBI agents. So I think from now on, it's up to us to be like, we're not satiated. We want the entirety of the Epstein files. And I think this is how you really use it to weaken him and the MAGA movement. And finally, on Michael Wolff, what I will say is this. In an interesting way, I've listened to Michael Wolff on the Daily Beast when he gave his justification. As a writer, as a journalist, I get it. He thinks the ends justify the means. He said You have to ingratiate yourself with these people, make them pretend that you like them, and then you get the better story, the bigger story. You go after all of them. Okay. But you want to make sure you don't lose yourself in the process. You don't lose your integrity. You don't lose your ethics. You want to make sure that you are not complicit, that when you're performing a role for perhaps the best intention, you don't become that role.
Yeah.
That is where I feel like there is an ethical standard where Michael, in his justification to extract this information, that I agree with you, Zev, is very, so far what he's been saying is proven true. And he said he has hundreds of hours of tapes. And he's told me he's seen photos that Jeffrey Epstein showed him of Donald Trump, vile photos of girls sitting on his lap, of girls pointing and laughing at a wet stain on his crotch, right? I said this to Michael the first time I interviewed him. I said it last week. I said, Michael, you are sitting on these hundreds of hours of conversation.
Proof.
There are survivors, there are victims, and why don't you release it? And he said, well, I've shipped it to everyone. I've told everyone they could publish it. And I say to him now, if he's listening, like the first time I met him, I'll find you someone. I'll find you a brilliant teenager who will.
I'll have my son do it. My son will do it. I'll have my son do it.
Parnas will do it for free. We'll create a database of your hundreds of hours of video of audio tapes. We'll categorize it. Why don't you just release this for free for the greater good? And I leave with that.
That's a good point. Wajahat Ali from the left hook. I want to hear from you, Vicky, again, because I don't know if you want to respond specifically to that, but you, as a final thought on.
Well, my hunch, and I do know Michael. I think Wad, you made a really, really good point when you said that one needs to be very careful as a journalist. You don't get caught up and lost. And it seems to me that Michael did. And he came on my, Vicky Ward Investigates, and we had a long conversation about this. And he wanted to stress that, when he was around Epstein, he'd never seen any women in any way sort of inappropriate. And you could tell from the way he was talking that Michael was totally seduced by the Rolodex of power that walked in and out of that room. Okay, well, that's exactly the slippery slope, right? That's exactly why all these other men, why Larry Summers suddenly has had to step back from public life, because they saw what they wanted to see and they didn't see what was inconvenient.
Very well put.
And I think that, and I know somebody else, I spoke to somebody else over the weekend who told me, he said, I met Jeffrey Epstein. I said, oh yeah. And this is a big Wall Street guy. And he said, yeah, I was through Clinton. It was the Clinton Global Initiative. And he said, so I was told that there was going to be a reception for Clinton. And he said, oh, where? And he said, at the house of Jeffrey Epstein. And this guy said, well, who's Jeffrey Epstein? This was been like 2012 or something. And they said, oh, Wall Street billionaire. And my source said, that's not possible. I'm on Wall Street. And if he'd made his money, if he'd made $1 billion on Wall Street, I would know who he is. And I've never heard of him. So anyway, he goes into this house. He's first to arrive. He walks into a room. It's empty. And he said, he just looked. There are these approaching him are 3 young women who are definitely not what he called appropriately dressed. And he said there was something that was, and the art on the walls was so inappropriate. The whole thing he felt was so creepy that he headed towards the bar. He sort of saw Bill Clinton coming in behind him, and he didn't even bother to say hello. He just left. He sensed there was something so completely wrong about all of this. He didn't want to stick around to shake anybody's hand. So for Michael to say he didn't see anything inappropriate, that seems just not
congruent.
Not true. Even Howard Lutnick said, listen, I walked in.
I've known he's a pedophile for 20 years. He lived next door to me. What?
Exactly. So, and I suspect, that on these tapes, if you think about the emails we've seen, imagine what the tapes are like.
Yeah.
Yep.
They're not going to be, and why did you treat that 16-year-old so terribly, are they? I mean, that's not the question and answer we're going to hear.
No, I think there's a lot of tapes in the police files as well, in the FBI files. There must be a lot of video there. Vicky Ward from Vicky Ward Investigates. Dean, we'll have another moment to catch up afterwards, but just your last thoughts here on this conversation that we've had.
Listen, I'm a fan of plain speak. I'll get to know Vicky a little bit more. Waj, you know this. Lev, you know this. I think Michael Wolff's a coward. Let's deal with that first. I think Michael Wolff's a liar. I think Michael Wolff's a survivalist. I would put Mark Epstein in that category, and anybody who willingly knew what was going on and did nothing. Because I watched that video, I'm going to get emotional talking about it, of these little girls holding up these pictures of themselves as children. And if anybody knows anything about PTSD or abuse or sexual abuse, those little girls still live inside those broken adults. And today, 427 individuals in the House decided that they were going to get justice for victims. They decided that they were going to ask for what should be a gimme in any democratic society that gives a shit about its people and abuse and child trafficking and rape, and the marginalization of women and girls, using them as props and assets. And I was not just encouraged by that. All I thought today was about the victims. I really tried, because there's some Schadenfreude in what we're dealing with here, right? There's some journalistic Schadenfreude for some people. There's some political Schadenfreude here for some people. Watching powerful people, bad things happen to bad people is a good thing today. So it's incredible. And there's a lot of I told you so's that are running around there. But there is a ton of unfinished business here. And that unfinished business is the business of the victims. That unfinished business is the business of transparency. That unfinished business is getting the unredacted files so that we can get underneath it. So not only do we get transparency for those young girls, those broken little girls who stood there courageously yesterday, who have been banging away at this drum day after day after day, for the Maria Farmers of the world, for the Katie Johnsons of the world, for every single girl. It is now a woman and man. There are young boys involved in this too, and every young lady who was abused, who was used, who was treated as a prop for a whole bunch of rich, nerdy incels like Larry Summers, who needs help trying to get a date. So he asks Jeffrey Epstein how he can help him get horizontal with his Asian intern. Listen, that's the other part of this. I hope today is a watershed moment. I hope today we can look back on November the 18th in a year from now. And not only do we know, the entanglements behind Russia, Israel, espionage, I hope we get that. But my real hope today lays with and sits with the Virginia Giffreys and the Farmers and the Johnsons and the Ransoms and these beautiful young girls that turned into these broken women. Because that is the point. That should always be the point. That should be the decent thing to do, is to go and help fix what is broken. And what is broken is the abuse, the toxic male attitude, the oligarchy in the United States of America. Canada has a similar issue. There are Canadians named in this. I mean, we're dealing with Peter Nygard, friends with Jeffrey Epstein, who's currently in jail in Winnipeg. So this isn't just an American problem. This is a global problem. This is the old guard. This is the idea that women are somehow, young girls are somehow assets, not human beings. So my heart goes out to every single one of them today, and I hope they feel lifted up. And I hope if you're a victim of abuse at the hands of rich, entitled assholes, I hope you feel lifted up today, because to me, that is the crux of the issue. To me, the humanity involved and the desertion of any kind of sense of moral decency by 5 different presidents, 5 different administrations up until this point. Today, I hope we get, and I'm gonna steal Vicky's optimism. Today, I hope the Senate follows up, and today, I hope we veto-proof this vote, this resolution in the Senate next, because then Donald Trump's goose is cooked, and that's what I hope for today.
Thanks, Dean. That's really a great way to end the show. I just want to thank all of you guys for being here, because it's rare to get all of your brilliant minds in one place. Vicky Ward, Lev Parnas, Wajahat Ali, and Dean Blundell, thank you for being here. And just to echo what you've been saying, I actually think we are seeing a bit of a break today. I think we're seeing a real tear between the old patriarchy and the new world. Maybe I think we're beginning to see a real fundamental shift in the way people are viewing this presidency and his network and his crowd and that billionaire class. I think it's really happening. I think that something's really shifting underneath the ground here. And I think today was just the first time we've seen a little piece of that. But thank you guys for being here. I really appreciate it. What a great honor to have all of you guys in one place. And thank you for being here on this coverage. And hopefully it all streamed live in all the right places. But if it isn't, I'll fix that right after this. But thank you so much. And Dean, if you want to hang around, we can finish off the 5-stack and do a little chat together there. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
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 1 second, let me just do that. And then this. Okay, there we go. That's a pretty remarkable panel there, Dean. I mean, sometimes I
gotta tell you, I was nervous.
I was nervous too, but Substack is beautiful that way. These guys, so great to have such a great group of people there. And I know thousands of people watching, but back to what you were saying there, I spoke to Maria Farmer just before we got in the air earlier on today. I was texting with her. She had got some good news on some of her blood work. She's been struggling with cancer all her life since this happened to her. Because, you might say, well, cancer just happened, but also it's almost symbolic the way she suffered so much, struggled so much. Think about 1996. Think about what you were doing in 1996 and how long a time it's been since then. And she's been fighting for the truth. She's been fighting for today for that long. And, she's 56 now. She's 25 when this first happened. It blows your mind away when you're contemplating how long her entire adult life she's been fighting, people shutting her down, people not believing her, people turning her away. And finally today, I thought something really big happened, and I thought they were listened to. They were listened to by America, and America forced this vote. And to your point, I think this is a day to remind us of the actual survivors of the story who've suffered horribly at this guy's hands and at Ghislaine's.
On the hands of so many.
Yeah.
Right. For so long, this isn't a this is a wonderful day. This is a hopeful day. But if you lose the ability to reflect on the very reason this day is here, which are thousands, not a couple dozen, not a few hundred, thousands of children, young girls that were trafficked, raped, and abused by really rich assholes, leaders of countries, CEOs of businesses, professors at fucking universities. You can get into the semantics of the honeypot. You can get into the idea that the FSB and Mossad and the CIA all use these subversive tactics to get dirt on people. Sure, great. That's not. And I want those answers because I know what lays behind that is institutional rot, foreign interference that goes back decades, and a certain Donald J. Trump, who currently occupies the Oval Office, who still refuses to have any fucking empathy for any of the victims.
Yeah, I think it's so telling. It's so telling that his response today was so off-key. Today was the day he should have come out and said, you know what? I feel terrible for these survivors. I'm going to have them here when we sign out, even if he's never, because no intention of doing
I'm going
that.
to make it my fucking job. This is going to be a signature policy of mine.
Every leader would have done, even if he has no intention of actually doing it, saying something today that actually showed a little bit of heart, a little bit of anything towards these victims would have gone a long way. But the fact that he just bullied this journalist into submission in the middle of a press conference with MBS sitting next to him, of all people.
Who are you? You're the worst. ABC's license should be taken away. You're awful. You're the worst. Get out of here. I'm not answering that question. I mean, calling another female reporter last night a pig.
Yeah.
On Air Force One.
America knows. America can see who he is. I mean, they really can see who he is. And it's
and by the way, both of those questions were innocuous questions.
Yeah.
Well, if there's nothing in it, why don't you release them? Shut up. Quiet, piggy.
Yeah.
Hey, just wondering, you have the ability to just kind of release all these today in the fucking White House with like a hardline Muslim dictator who literally took a bone saw to a fucking literally took a bone saw to an American citizen, Jamal Khashoggi, who was involved with and did business with Jeffrey Epstein, sitting right next to Donald Trump, as he mocked and ridiculed another reporter for asking another very fucking basic question, which is, you have the ability, sir. You have all the power in the world. Why are you sending this? Why are you even allowing this House vote? Just fucking release it. And he's like, where are you from? Who are you with? You're garbage. They're garbage.
ABC
I
News is,
mean,
by the way, not garbage. Of course, it's one of the leading news organizations in the world, asking the most legitimate question of the president of the United States, with the leader of Saudi Arabia there discussing the horrific abuse of these women. Thousands of people. Someone
well,
that
let's
he
be
knew.
honest. The leader of Saudi Arabia, MBS, probably not a big fan of human rights and really not a big fan of female rights.
Yeah, well, when America aligns with that on this day of all days, it tells you everything there is to know. I mean, I it's a really emotional day, I think, for everybody. I think everyone needs to take stock, but I think everyone's got to keep fighting for this. And we need all the files, as Lev was saying. We need every one of those files. We need to know exactly what was going on, not just so we can understand what happened to these survivors who deserve every little bit of information as possible, but something was done to America through Jeffrey Epstein and that whole network of operations that extended beyond the human trafficking and abuse, but into all sorts of other crimes, financial crimes, political interference. Something was done to America, and we need to get to the bottom of it. And it's not this president who shouldn't be hiding it. No president should be hiding it.
No president should be hiding the abuse of thousands of the rape, the pedophilia of thousands of young people over the course of 40 years. No president. And if a president does, what is that president?
Yeah.
He's complicit.
Oh, my president. The PSA we were all talking about, I'm going to end with that because I think it's just the right tone to end today's show with. These are the survivors in a public service announcement. They put it out this week. It's incredibly powerful, and I think, Dean, we should probably end there. But yeah, go for it.
No, yeah, absolutely. We'll play this out. I want to thank 4,000 people for joining us right now. I want to thank Vicky Ward for taking time out of her day. Big hitter, Vicky Ward. She's incredible.
Vicky Ward
I'm such a huge fan. Please go and subscribe.
By the way,
to Vicky Ward Investigates.
Sorry, I shouldn't interrupt you, but she was the person who brought Jeffrey Epstein into the world. I mean, she was that first article that we all quote about Jeffrey Epstein. That was Vanity Fair, and that was her article.
It was Vicky.
And I still refer to that article all the time. And there may be questions about it, there may be all sorts of things, but she was the first person to ask all those questions about
Under incredible duress, she put out that article.
Yeah, exactly.
She is a hero of mine.
Mm-hmm.
And she's so measured and so good at what she does. I am such a massive Vicky Ward fan.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to talk to her again and have her on the 5 sec to talk about that journey. But thank you to Vicky Ward. Vicky Ward Investigates. Give her a sub. Wajahat Ali, the left hook. Give him a sub. Please do it right now. Same with Lev Parnas. Give him a sub. Today was sort of watershed. You and I work together all the time, but if anybody knows anything about content, everybody protects their own corner. We had some of the biggest hitters that are involved with that understand this, not just from an inside perspective, not from a MAGA perspective, a corruption perspective, foreign interference perspective, all get together today.
Mm-hmm.
All of us moving in one direction, all of us doing it at the same time for Mass Effect. Why? Why do we do that? We did that because we love you. We did that because we are you. And for us to have this time of yours, for several thousand people to be joining us right now isn't just an honor, it's incredibly humbling. Mm-hmm. And so please remember that everybody that was involved in this does this out of their own pocket, out of their own time, with their own energy, and seeing all of those people come together at the same time. You want to have all of those people in your life. So please subscribe to all of them. Please subscribe to Zev. His Greatest Heist series, book 2 is out today. If you go to narrative.org, it lays a lot of tracks, and it starts with his book 2 in the latest episode, starts with the arrest of Jeffrey Epstein, and it really kind of gets underneath a lot of the stuff that we covered today. And he just got his full color check mark. I just wanted everybody to know that. He's super legit now. I don't know if you know that. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, you got your full color check mark. Way to go.
Thank you.
He's a mover and a shaker, this Zev Shalev.
You left out Lev. We should talk about Lev Parnas. Also,
oh my God, I love him so much.
And everyone needs to subscribe to Lev. Remembers.
I said Lev.
Did you? I think. Okay,
yeah, earlier. Yeah, you missed it because you weren't paying attention to me.
I always pay attention to you, Dean.
You can't not.
Because you are at deanblundell.substack.com. A must subscribe to, because you get all the news there every day. First thing in the morning, Dean is up, brings you the best takes on everything. You can't understand the day without reading deanblundell.substack.com.
Dude, I'll tell you what, just a quick aside. If you go to deanblundell.substack.com, it's free to join, pay subs, great. Love to have you. You got 25% off right now for the whole year. You get instant access for the whole year. You lock in in your price. Founding members only pay once, never pay again. But another bomb dropped about Donald Trump protecting pedophiles today. Andrew Tate interfered in the investigation into Andrew Tate, forced the feds to give the Tate brothers their phones back when he came, and they were literally investigating the Tate brothers for trafficking a Florida woman to Romania.
Unbelievable.
That literally dropped today. So please go and read that, because he is running a pedophile protection network for pay at this point. It is like, again, all of these receipts continue to add up. But that story came out this morning. ProPublica put out sort of a piece about it. I did some digging, and I kind of put a bunch of shit together so that you can kind of see the roadmap of what Donald Trump is, which is he is taking advantage of this psychological operation he's running on other criminals, and it's called advantageous persuasion, where he's trying very, very hard to run this pedophile protection network so that he himself can be justified in telling everybody, look, he did it. If you've ever been drunk, if you've ever had an addiction problem, you want everybody else around you to be in that same disgusting boat with you, because it justifies your fucking behavior. There's literally a psychological term for it. And this story about Andrew Tate and the Epstein files and
pedophile
proves
protection
the
network.
fucking point.
Out of the White House is what we got.
Yes.
Pedophile protection network out of the White House. That is where we're at, ladies and gentlemen. It's time to get these Epstein files out. Thank you so much, Dean Blundell. Check out that story on deanblundell.substack.com. You can check out my stuff at narrative.org, NARATIV.org. We'll leave you with these incredible moments from the survivors of Jeffrey Epstein, this PSA that they put out. Have a good day, everybody. We'll see you next time.
I suffered so much pain.
So much pain.
So much pain.
I suffered so much pain. I was 14 years old.
I was 16 years old.
I was 16.
17.
14 years old.
This is me.
This was me.
This is me. When I met Jeffrey Epstein.
This is me when I met Jeffrey Epstein.
There are about 1,000 of us.
It's time to bring the secrets out of the shadows. It's time to shine a light into the darkness.